After spending 3,500 days living in this Minecraft world, it's finally time for me to do a world tour. When this world first started, I was only making content on TikTok, so most of this world is left completely undocumented on YouTube. The reason I chose right now to do a world tour is because I've decided to start a new chapter of this series by moving to the end dimension. I've actually posted the first couple videos of this new base going up. Most of my future builds are going to be happening in the end dimension for the next little while, so I thought it'd be nice to film a full tour of my world up to this point before moving into the new base. Okay, let's get started. The first major project I ever worked on in this world was the Geode Enderman farm. At this point, geodes had just been added to the game, and I wanted to try to use them in my first project. This is what I came up with, and I've used it as my sole source of XP ever since. Throughout the tour, I'm going to show you several automatic resource farms like this one. When I build something like this, I usually like to wing it a little bit, so my redstone ends up being kind of sloppy. For every farm that I show you, I'll try to find a good tutorial on YouTube and I'll link it in the description. Just keep in mind that I'm playing in Java Edition, so these designs might not work in Bedrock. Up next is the building where I've spent the most time, my storage room. The exterior is based on the design of a default ocean monument, but obviously I've made some modifications. My favorite part is the arc of hot air balloons floating above the build. I built them in rainbow order and tried to give each of them their own unique look. Inside the build, there are 3 separate storage sections. The first is general item storage. This is where most of my items get held. I used a data pack to make these item frames invisible, and it makes the room feel a lot less cluttered. I only have 1 chest per category, but I use shulker boxes to increase the total amount of storage. In the corners, I used honey blocks and bubble streams to make an elevator. Section 2 is auto-sorting bulk storage. The big clumps of chests along the walls have item filters behind them. I made a filter for every type of item you could get from digging in the overworld. A lot of my projects require clearing out large sections of land. This sorting system allows me to throw all of the blocks I get from digging randomly into shulker boxes, and then I never have to worry about organizing them. I simply place those messy shulker boxes into this chest. The boxes are then automatically unloaded, and the items are sent into the system where they are sorted into their proper chest. The empty shulker boxes are then hoppered over to this chest on the opposite side. The last storage section is a bit unique. Along the back wall, I've placed 64 shulker boxes, split into 4 different groups. Each group has 1 box for each dye color. These boxes are how I organize my dyeable items. Each square of shulker boxes is meant for a different type of item. Going from left to right, square 1 stores dyes and flowers, then concrete and concrete powder, stained glass and glass panes, and then terracotta and glazed terracotta. I store each colored item in their respectively colored shulker box. Underneath each section is 4 barrels for overflow, in case I need to store full shulkers. The last noteworthy part of this room is the map. I crafted these maps at the same time I built the base. Whenever I added something new to the area, I'd update the maps as well. It certainly added some lag to the base, but it was fun watching the map develop as time went on. Originally, the area surrounding my base was just a regular plains biome. I brainstormed for a while about what kind of custom biome would complement the base well. This is what I came up with. I used the pink birch leaves from my custom texture pack to make these little cherry trees. I spread them throughout the area and also covered the ground in podzol. I think the dark brown ground helped the trees pop a little bit. Honestly, custom trees are not my strong suit, and I don't love how these ones turned out. But regardless, I don't regret building them, and it was a great learning experience. Now that cherry trees have actually been added to Minecraft, I'm gonna remove the pink birch texture from my pack. When I do, I'll also replace these trees with new and improved ones using the new cherry leaves. I think it'll be a nice way to see how far I've come with my building abilities. On the north side of the biome, I built these little flower fields for each type of 2 tall flower. Unlike most of my builds, this one doesn't serve any purpose outside of decoration, but it's still one of my favorites. Making these fields was super easy and really fun to do, so if you're looking for a new project, this is a great way to fill up empty space that you don't know what to do with. This one's an ongoing project that I've added on to over time. This was originally a desert biome. To transform it, I laid down gray concrete powder, completely concealing the sand. Then I added a few lava features and dubbed it the Volcano biome. On the east side, I built a few tiny volcanoes and a couple lava pits, including a moon-shaped lava pit which we'll come back to later. The lava pit on the west side of the build is the most recent addition to the project. I felt like my terraforming ability had grown since the start of the build, and I wanted to see if I could make a more interesting lava pit. The main attraction of this biome is the TNT mob farm. Up until recently, this was the only source of gunpowder in my world. The farm uses diamond-shaped platforms that flush mobs off with water, and the timing is all controlled with redstone clocks. Once the mobs die against the deep slate, their drops are picked up by hopper minecarts running below. The exterior of this farm initially had a much different design, but the only clips I have of that original design are from old TikToks. I eventually decided to rip it down and replace it with the gray TNT block, a decision that I stand by wholeheartedly. The little plateau is completely man-made, which means it's hollow. The hopper minecarts unload into this storage system. I built a redstone item filter behind each of the chests in order to automatically organize the mob drops. I also built a small cactus farm in the floor. I'd like to make a better one in the future, but this one has provided me with enough cactus to get me this far. This was the first of many storage rooms that I would build in this world, and I have to say, it's my least favorite. It lacks color, theme, and character. From this point on, I really stepped it up. Remember the moon-shaped lava pit I mentioned? It's actually the entrance to project number 5, the Under Lava Lab. When I built this room, the goal was to create a villager trading hall that could be summoned and hidden with the press of a button. With that in mind, this is what I came up with. In the center below the globe, there's a note block. By right-clicking that note block, I activate the villager trading hall. The villagers' heads pop up through the ground one by one. I only wanted to trade with the librarians, so I picked the most important enchantments and name-tagged each of the villagers accordingly. I made sure to zombify and cure each villager over and over and over again so that all their trades are down to 1 emerald. If you click the note block a second time, all of the villagers' heads will pop back down below the floor. Making this was actually pretty simple. The trick is to have the villagers standing on top of a chain with their head partially inside the slab. Then you just push the chain up with a piston. Moving on to the orange wing of the lab. There's a piston door activated by another note block on the floor. Inside is my sheep farm. I know this is a lot to look at, so I'll explain. When I started this world, I downloaded a data pack that made it so that you could name tag any animal and it would stay as a baby forever. I was trying to finally come up with a use for that data pack, and this is what I came up with. I made 16 of these eternally young sheep, 1 for each wool color. I leashed each of them and attached the lead to a fence that's hidden behind the concrete. I put a slime block at the bottom to help protect them from fall damage as they flail around the tubes. But of course, none of these sheep are actually producing wool. The wool comes from below each tube, where I built a small 1-sheep farm. There's 1 farm for each wool color. All of the wool's collected and brought into this storage room. The chests open up when you enter and close back down when you leave. Since there's only 1 sheep per color, the farms don't make a lot of wool, but it's provided me with all that I've needed. The other wing of the lab is completely empty. I left it open for a future project, but I guess that project never came. The third and final custom biome that I built is the mushroom biome. Originally, this was just a normal Minecraft forest. I removed all the trees and covered the biome in mycelium. Then I came up with 4 different species of mushrooms. The red ones had white spots, a domed top, and a flat bottom. The brown ones had a slightly curved top with a completely flat bottom. The orange ones are slightly curved on top and on bottom, plus they have white spots. And lastly, the dark brown mushrooms look the same as the light brown ones, but they always come in pairs. I built several variations of each type until the biome felt complete. The plan was to eventually make a giant mushroom-themed nether portal in this area, but I guess that plan also never came to fruition. Out of the 3 custom biomes, I think this one clearly holds the title for the most underwhelming. If you were to fly west for a few seconds, you'd run into my next set of overworld builds, starting with the Mario project. This project actually started a long time ago. When I was playing in a much older survival world, I came up with the idea for a Mario-themed crop farm build. I got about halfway through when I lost that Minecraft world due to water damage. Years later, I decided to make another attempt at the build in this world and finally finish what I started. I think the exterior of the build is pretty self-explanatory. The real magic happens inside. Inside the build, there are 5 different types of crop farm, with a central storage room to collect all the items. I continued the Mario theme into the storage room, and I do not regret it. Out of all of the storage rooms in my world so far, I have to say, this one is my favorite. It's got color, theme, attention to detail, everything the TNT Mob Farm storage room lacked. On the south wing of the build, you'll find the first 3 crop farms. They all work off the same basic concept of using redstone flying machines to harvest the crops automatically. Honestly, I never really found a use for that much bamboo, but the sugarcane and kelp I get from these farms is invaluable. Dried kelp blocks are my main source of furnace fuel, and I burn through sugarcane every time I craft rockets for my elytra. On the other side, there are 3 more farms, 2 for pumpkins and 1 for melons. These farms use the same flying machine concept, except these machines are a bit more advanced. There are hopper minecarts built into the flying machine itself. The moment a pumpkin or melon is harvested, the drops are immediately picked up, making this a very lag-friendly design. All 5 of these crop farms run automatically, which means I can AFK in the storage room and collect a decent amount of resources. And that's about all there is to cover for the Mario project, unfortunately. Considering how much empty space is still left in the build, it really feels like wasted potential. I plan on doing a similar project as part of my end base. Of course, it will look completely different aesthetically, and it definitely won't be Mario themed. But I want to rebuild this farms with the knowledge I have now. I'd also like to add several more, like a cactus farm, a carrot and potato farm, maybe even a moss farm. I'm positive that if I tried again, I could do it right this time. Right behind the Mario project is the biggest build I have ever created, my witch farm. I named this build the Corrupted Cauldron, inspired by a boss mob in Minecraft Dungeons. This is actually the first project I ever posted here on YouTube, so you can watch the process from start to finish if you'd like. The centerpiece of this build is the giant cauldron in the middle, with a mysterious potion floating inside of it. I built a series of rings surrounding this cauldron, each with their own magical design. You probably recognize some of the characters surrounding the rings. That's because these symbols are known as the Galactic Alphabet, which is the language used in Minecraft's enchanting table. Each symbol actually corresponds with an English letter, so I decided to spell out my name, one and only Delta. My favorite part of this project by far is the 16 moon phases that surrounds the build. Something about seeing all of them laid out like that just makes me really happy. I spent a lot of time working on this build, and most of it was spent digging. This area was originally really hilly, and I had to flatten it out to make room for the build. I removed every single block by hand and collected each one. If you ever see me using dirt, stone, granite, or diorite, then chances are I got those blocks from this project. Now here's where things get a little awkward. Normally this would be when I take you behind the scenes of how the witch farm works, and I'd show you the storage room where I keep all the items. However, there's no such thing. Inside the cauldron is not a witch farm, it's just a witch hut. No items are being produced here, and as such, no storage room has been built. When I got the idea for this build, it was all about the aesthetics for me. I wasn't really passionate about the actual witch farm portion of it, so when I got to that part of the build, I just kinda abandoned it. As a result, I have this beautiful massive build in my world, with no reason to go visit it. It bums me out a bit to think that my biggest build ever is just a shell with nothing inside. Luckily, this farm is about to lose its title of being my biggest build ever, because the end base is going to beat that record, and it's going to beat it by a mile. Before I show off my final massive project, I wanted to throw in a few small ones just as a bonus. I don't consider any of these to be full projects, but I think they're still worth showing. I'll start with my end portal room. I essentially used black concrete and glass to make this void room around the end portal. Even though it's a void, I still find it more entertaining than walking through a default stronghold. There's not much else to say about this room, kinda speaks for itself. Next up is the gold farm. It's basically just a collection of nether portals stacked tightly together. It looks similar to the Overworld gold farm designs, but works differently. As soon as the zombie piglins spawn on the obsidian, they are immediately sent to the Overworld. You can only see them for about half a second before they disappear, like a flash. On the Overworld side, the piglins pour out of this nether portal and down into the bottom where they'll be chilled to death by powdered snow. The drops are collected and brought over to this rudimentary storage system. Side note, I got the obsidian from mining away the end pillars. It was a 2 birds 1 stone type situation. I got to remove an obstacle while collecting a resource. I didn't use up all the obsidian though, I still have several boxes left over. Near the gold farm is the Hoglin farm. This is where I get all of my food in this world. This was probably the easiest farm I ever made, and it's so valuable. All I have to do is stand on this AFK platform, and the Hoglins do the rest. Not to mention, this farm produces loads of leather. I've never needed to make a bunch of bookshelves, but it's nice to know that I could if I wanted to. Up next is a much prettier build, the Nether Hub. To be fair, calling this a nether hub is a bit of a reach because it's only this room. I built this room with the intention of making several decorated tunnels, but I ended up just leaving them as netherrack. The last of my little builds is the starter base. This was the first storage room I built in this world. I didn't spend much time or effort on this build because I knew it was temporary. Although I did build it above a skeleton farm, which gave me great access to bones and experience early on. Alright, enough with the tiny builds. Let's look at something a bit more, well, you'll see. The last project I want to show you is also the most recent addition to my world, Creeper Garden. When I was designing this build, I had 2 goals that I was determined to meet. I wanted the build to look better and produce more drops than the TNT mob farm. After a long building process, I was able to meet those goals. The redstone feature of this farm is a creeper and spider farm. It uses all the same basic principles as the TNT mob farm, but I expanded it to have twice as many spawning platforms. The mobs die atop the magma blocks, and their drops are picked up by hopper minecarts. The drops are then taken over to a room on the right side of the build. This is what I've been using as a temporary storage room while I've been building the end base. And that base, I plan on building a storage room that would put all my others to shame. Creeper Garden is the last build that I'm considering part of the old world. From here, I'm moving into a new era of projects in the end dimension. With every new build, I'll do my very best to make it better than the last one. Before we say goodbye to these projects, I wanted to show off some game statistics. As you know, Minecraft keeps track of every single block you break, craft, or place, and I've picked out some of my favorite stats to share with you. I've placed over 50,000 mycelium, which is the equivalent of 30 shulker boxes. I've placed more than 50 shulker boxes each of gray concrete powder and podzol. In Minecraft, one block is considered 1 meter. With that in mind, I've flown more than 8,500 miles using an elytra. I've killed 91,315 Endermen, but to be fair, Endermen have killed me 12 times. I also found some sad statistics, like the fact that I've killed 19 bees and 3 axolotls. Such ruthless behavior, and I don't even remember doing it. I've crafted 6 stacks of shulker boxes, some for pragmatic reasons, some for decoration. And finally, between all of the giant holes I've dug and the mountains I've removed, I've mined a total of 752,805 stone, which is over 400 shulker boxes. That's going to conclude the tour for today. I really appreciate everyone who watched this video. I had a really good time making it. I love this Minecraft world, and I've spent a lot of time developing it. This new phase of living in the end and trying to build my own dimension is really exciting, and I hope you'll come along for it. Thank you to everyone who tunes in for my survival videos and for my Skyblock series. I can't tell you how much it means to me that there are people who want to watch me play this game, so thank you to each and every one of you.